If you watch this channel for any length of time, you're going to hear me say my infamous phrase, get it right at the source. It's good advice. It's really life-changing advice if you can adhere to it. It means make the raw tracks sound as good as possible. It's the antithesis of the often used phrase, let's just fix it in the mix. This is no bueno. We don't say, can we fix it in the mix? We say, get it right at the source. But that leaves a question. Can you fix anything in the mix? And that's what we're going to discuss today. My name is Joe Gilder. I've got some examples later in the video of good and bad recordings and what you can and can't fix in the mix. Plus, we're going to answer the age-old question, how do you know when you've gotten it right at the source? Let me just say this right out of the gate. Get it right at the source is more like a life philosophy than it is an achievable goal. Just like my goal is to never do anything hurtful to anyone ever, but I do, right? I'm a flawed human who does wrong things. So the goal isn't bad. It's just maybe not perfectly achievable. It's the same thing in the recording studio. My goal has always been to get it right at the source, and I still get imperfect recordings. Not bad recordings anymore, but recordings that could be improved. If you went down my list of songs that I've released, I could tell you what's wrong with each of them. That's human nature. But the goal, the thing I'm aiming for, is this perfection. This idea that after I've recorded it, I don't have to touch it with any mixing plugin because it sounds so good. And if that's my goal, I'm probably going to land somewhere with a pretty good sounding set of tracks that will be easy to mix. However, there are things that we can fix in the mix. It's fun to say, don't fix it in the mix, but reality is there are plenty of things that I can easily fix in the mix that I don't even worry about it if they come up in a recording session because I know that that actually can be fixed rather easily in the mix, and it's not a deal breaker. It hasn't ruined the recording. Everything's going to be just okay. By the way, part of getting it right at the source isn't just being a good recording engineer and making the raw recording sound good. It's also being a good producer and making sure you record the right thing, the right part, the right instrument to begin with. I've got a free checklist that will help you ask yourself the right questions to make sure you're moving in the right direction as a producer. You can have it for free. Just go to homestudiocorner.com/checklist to get your free copy. I've got 2 pairs of examples to share with you today, all recorded by me. Some good, some bad, some fixable, some not. Let's take a listen. Here is a snare drum that I recorded a few years ago that I still have nightmares about. Take a listen. If you zoom into the waveform, you can start to get an idea of what happened. Look how spiky it is. What happened? Well, the thing that happened was we were recording. I was a little nervous. We were tracking drums, bass. At the same time, I think I was playing it. No, I wasn't playing guitar. I was just running the session. We had scratch tracks. And I ran the snare drum through a channel strip that has a compressor on it. And I forgot to listen to the snare drum by itself. I listened to the whole kit. We recorded a little sample, listened to it, sounded fine to me. I said, let's go. And that mistake haunts me now because I had a compressor turned on the channel strip and it was compressing like crazy and I just didn't catch it. So stupid. So this is an example of. This is an extreme example. This is arguably kind of a dumb example, but I could not really resurrect this snare drum at all because it's got way too much compression, way too fast of an attack time, and there's just not anything I can do. Thankfully, we recorded a bottom snare mic that did not have compression on it, and I was able to get a pretty good sound out of it, blend it with the top one, and overall the project was fine. Still could have been better, but it was fine. I didn't discover that this happened until the tracking day was over and the musicians had packed up and gone home. Now, you could make the argument for you could sample replace this, but I don't like to do that. I like to work with what I've got, even if what I've got is hot garbage. Now, compare that to one of the more recent tracks that I've recorded. This snare drum, by the way, people say, Joe, why are your tracks all clipped? They're not. It's just zoomed in. It's just a zoomed in waveform. This is different. I think Pro Tools, if it's like this, it's clipped. This is just zoomed in. It's just fun. It's just visual for me. It's not clipped, I promise. But here's a snare drum that I recorded here in this very room, I believe. And this was a joy. So that other one I played for you, not a joy to mix. It was a hassle to mix. I had to really work for it to make it sound just okay. This one sounded great out of the box, just with the raw recording. I mean, I can't not have a stank face with that. It was a big honking snare drum, so the first thing we did was pick the right snare. The drummer brought a few. We listened to a few in the room. That one felt really good in the room. Then we messed with mic placement to make sure that it picked up the mic in a good way, meaning it captures the whole instrument. If you put the microphone too close to the rim of the snare, all you get is doom, doom, doom. If you move it too far away from the snare, you pick up everything else in the kit. Too close, and you don't really get the whole picture of it, so we kind of got it about a hand width from the snare out over the snare, pointed towards the middle of the snare. And then we also made the drum in the room sound really good and thick with some dampening, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But it just came out sounding like this. Now, that's not perfect for every style of music. For this song, though, we needed something big and thick and something that made your face do this, and we got it. No fancy preamps. I'm pretty sure this just went into... Anyway, I don't think it was a fancy microphone or a fancy preamp. It just was normal, everyday stuff. We just got the right placement right. Also, it's a killer drummer who knows how to hit the drum. But that's an example of two very different drum sounds. One needs a lot of work in the mix. This one didn't need much of anything. This one was fun to mix. The other one was a chore to mix. Up next, we have two different acoustic guitar recordings, both in stereo, both recorded with two microphones. One much better than the other. However, the bad one here can actually be easily fixed. See if you can spot the problem. I'll play the bad one for you first. This was from years ago. I set up two microphones and I put them just too close to the guitar. On headphones, I didn't really notice. I was just kind of enthralled by the stereo width of it that I didn't pay attention to the problem that was happening. See if you can spot it. Now, it's a cool guitar part. I love that chord progression. It plays like every chord I knew at the time, it feels like. But the main problem here, it's got nice width, it's got good high frequencies, but there is this, I get mad talking about it, there is this resonance down around 200 hertz-ish that just goes boom, 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 boom. Every time my hand struck the guitar is kind of like a little drum, right? I'm hitting the drum is going goo, and that goo is getting picked up by these microphones that were just inches away from the instrument. So you end up with this foom, foom, foom sound. You can see it in the waveform. These big blobs right here, those are the foom, fooms. Not great. Were I to do it again, I would back the mics up or move them in a different place where they weren't within firing zone of that big woof of sound that's coming out of the sound hole of the guitar. I'll show you how to fix that in a second. Next, let's listen to one of my favorite recordings. This is a fingerstyle guitar, also recorded stereo, XY, but I focused obsessively on position, mainly because I learned my lesson from this other session, and I captured something that I think is fantastic. Here's that recording. It's got not as much width as the one before, but it's so warm and it hits the low notes without them going so far as becoming woofy. And it's just pleasant to listen to. That was a joy to mix. This first one, not as much of a joy. Actually, though, let's listen to this first one again and let me show you how I would fix this problem. It's actually a lot simpler than you might think. Years ago when I mixed this, I think I made it way harder than it needed to be. It's actually, this pretty much fixes that problem and gets us back to a great sounding acoustic recording. It may still need EQ in the mix after this, but this move fixed the problem. What is it? I found the hooting frequency. It was around 160. Let me show you. thing about these, once you find them, they're pretty consistent. It's not really related to what I'm playing. It's just a foom, 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 foom that happens when I hit the guitar. So if once I find that frequency, which I just did, all I gotta do is cut it. So I do a cut, make it pretty narrow, and I cut aggressively until that sound is no longer the prominent thing that I hear. Then what I get is a nice, pretty nice sounding acoustic guitar. That one part where I play that G and do that hammer on thing, here it is without the EQ, with EQ. Instead of going, it goes, I got that weirdness out of the way so we could just hear the guitar. The sacrifice here was, of course, that's a big hunk of low mids to take out, so I sacrificed some potential warmth that I could have gotten had I recorded it better, but I was still able to fix it for the most part with an EQ. Now, in hindsight, I'll record it better and be able to fix it with EQ. That's the ultimate solution. Here's a little formula to help you remember. Raw tracks plus minimal mixing, minimal messing with the tracks equals a happy face, right? If the raw tracks already sound great and any potential problems can be easily fixed with, say, a single band of EQ, then I would say, congratulations, you just got it right at the source. Now, a lot of this is subjective, but what sounds good to you matters. If the raw track doesn't sound anything close to your favorite guitar tone from your favorite record, then go to work on the raw track some more. Don't think that the solution is just using a bunch of plugins to get it there. Chances are the raw track on your favorite record sounds a lot like what it sounds like on the mix, so go forth and do likewise. If you like this video and you like to record vocals, don't miss this video on something you need to stop doing on your vocal recording sessions. That's it for me. Thanks for watching. See ya.